Hey guys, hey, happy Monday. I'm sorry.
Happy Wednesday.
Hey, it's been a week of Mondays. Happy Wednesday. Jordan, do you want to
Absolutely.
kick us off and welcome everybody?
Happy Wednesday, veterans. Welcome, welcome. And thank you for spending some time with us today. I am Coach Jordan. We've got today myself, Coach Kim here, as well as Coach Jen with two N's as well, covering down. She'll be covering down in the chat. So welcome, welcome.
Yeah, so let us know what branch you served in, what years you served, where you're tuning in from. As Jordan said, I am Coach Kimberly. Before joining BACI, I was a mental health professional for about 4 years, where I worked with civilians and vets, battled drug and alcohol addiction, as well as mental health disorders. So I've been here a year. It's been absolutely great serving vets. Honestly, everyday conversations is like heartwarming for me. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. What brought me to VACI? I was recommended by a veteran coach manager. Best thing that's ever happened since I've had my daughter. But yeah, I'm happy to be here with you all. Jordan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Cam. So I introduced myself, a little bit about me, what brought me here, is something that I've always wanted to do is serve my country. It's made some lifestyle choices right out of high school that led me beyond that. But this is me circling back and contributing to helping serve vets here. So what brought me here? Just a commitment to serving vets and being a part of this process here. Uh, I didn't serve in the military, but that's it still allowed me to be here and be a part of this process. So welcome again, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. So getting an opportunity to help and educate vets. So absolutely, thank you so much.
So I'm veteran coach Jen McDonald. I've been here for about 3 years. I'm super excited to be teamed up and get to work with Coach Kimberly and Coach Jordan. I'm the granddaughter, daughter, and wife and mother of United States Marines. I also have veterans in my family who served in other branches. And serving veterans is my passion. So professionally, I was in healthcare prior to coming to VACI. Work in the community significantly with veterans on a one-on-one basis and in smaller groups. And then here I get the opportunity to serve veterans every day around the world. And the best part is that we are regularly and consistently able to facilitate positive life change and get our veterans over that hump and onto a path of success. It's so fulfilling. It's the most rewarding professional role I've ever had. And I am honored and privileged to be in this role and to be working with the great coaches in VACI that I get the opportunity to work with. So today, the three of us, we want to make sure that we are acknowledging all the veterans who are chiming in in the chat. Thank you guys so much for chiming in. And once we get a chance to say hey and give your shout outs, we're actually going to talk a little bit today about the PACT Act, and we're going to do a little different spin on the PACT Act than we've done in the past. A lot of times we're talking about the specifics and drilling down into the PACT Act and the locations and the dates of service and a lot of administrative information. What we really want to do is kind of shed more light on some of the more prevalent and more frequently developed and claimed conditions, and really give some insight on how best to develop a presumptive condition. Speak about how the nexus is identified, speak about some symptoms, speak about developing your medical evidence, because the key is really to support your rating when you're going into the claim for a presumptive. So we're going to talk about just kind of pick apart a few of the more commonly claimed and successful high value presumptives and how to develop them. For now, I'll throw it back to Coach Jordan, Coach Kimberly, give some shout outs to our chat. And we'll go ahead and get.
Yeah, thank you so much, Coach Jen, and everything you said in regards to this role that we play here at Victims Insider being so fulfilling. It really is. Like every day, my conversations are just like a bliss to have with the vets and trying to help them to get to a higher rating or just to get that service is fulfilling for me and for all of us. But yeah, I see in the chat, Mr. Wayne Kern, Army 68-271. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Mark Spears, thank you for joining us. United States Marine Corps. Mr. Kevin, United States Navy, Gulf War, currently 70% PNT, 100% TDIU. Congrats to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Thank you
Give a
all.
shout out to Marine Kenyon Pence, long career, 96-14 in Texas. Looks like he's already at 100%.
And I see our very own Mr. Veteran Coach Manager Stacy Allen in the building. So thank you for joining us, Stacy. Love to have you here. Thank you to all the vets that are joining us and possible future vets that we may work with. So thank you all for joining us.
Absolutely. And I just want to piggyback on Jen and Kim's comments. Like the impact that we see every day on our vets' lifestyles is what brings us back every day and what brings us here today. To again help provide that education to put you in the best position to get the rating that you well deserve. That impact is what keeps us going. So I look forward to continuing that process and sharing some tidbits here throughout today's live.
Yeah, thank you for that, Coach Jordan. All right, so I'm going to kick it off with speaking about the disclaimer. So here we go. And then at the end, we'll get to the question. We'll have a question and answer segment. So we'll get to the questions that we see in the chat. So our disclaimer, we are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs. We are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching consulting company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions for a wide range of disability conditions. So that was our disclaimer. Jordan, do you want to talk more about our SME method?
Absolutely. So the SIM method. Let's see.
Sorry about that.
No, it's not a problem. Strategy, education, medical evidence. That composes of one-on-one coaching. With coaches like myself, Jen with 2 N's, and Kim here. Strategy sessions. The strategy sessions kind of establish the foundation for the process in regards to which steps are going to be taken to get you in a position to get the rating that you well deserve. Claim submission, and that's the part of the process, as well as the CMP preparation is a huge part, a huge impactful part for this entire process, of being prepared and educated in regards to that CMP exam and that process. CMP is compensation and pension exam for those who are new to claim submission in this process. Live classes via Zoom. You can see those classes on our website 3 times a day. 3 classes are coffee with the coaches, mental health exam prep, medical exam prep. Come in, check it out, get information. Each class is different than the last one, right? You'll get a new nugget every time throughout that process.
Right. And I just wanted to double back. Sorry about that, Miss Jen. I wanted to double back a little bit about the CNP preparation. So what we say here and what is true is that is the most important day of your claim. So what we offer is that we have 15-minute strategy sessions. We have claim submissions that you can book on the calendar, as well as with your coach, as well as we have that CMP preparation to where you're one-on-one with your coach, getting prepared for that exam, as well as we have those specific types of classes to get prepared for either your evaluation or your CMP exam preparation. So I just wanted to jump in and say that.
Awesome. So our program, education is key. Education is absolutely key. We are coaches and we are here to coach our veterans through the entire process, determining what claims are your viable, high value claims, how to develop the evidence to best support that claim, how to get your claims submitted with that right evidence, preparing for the next steps that the VA is going to take you through, and in all likelihood, that's going to be a CMP exam. So knowing what you're going to be evaluated on, what's relevant, what do you want to talk about, what do you want to show them, how to be prepared for that CMP exam, because that is the most important day in the process. Being able to sit with your coach and review the decision when you get it back. Did you get the decision that you were shooting for, that you feel is the most appropriate? And if yes, where do we go from here? If not, where do we start, and how do we go back to keep working on the decision that was supposed to be the most appropriate? What were you expecting? And all of this through every step, time with your coach, the VACI resources, our YouTube channel, our classes, our Facebook mastermind group. These are all resources that we strongly recommend that you take that you take advantage of consistently, not just popping into one class, but hearing the classes and the discussion and the information repetitively is going to help you to be confident and prepared for whatever comes from the VA. We do provide, if you're not sure if the program is right for you, you can sign up for a discovery call. And a discovery call is time with a veteran ambassador, talk a little bit about your information, talk about your situation, talk about your history, and help to determine, yeah, VACI can absolutely help you. You definitely should talk with a coach. Or, hey, you know what? It sounds to me like you're kind of maxed out right now. Or, here's the tech aspect. There might be a challenge with tech, but they'll help you to determine if the VA claims inside elite program is going to be right for you. So definitely do a dry run with a veteran ambassador and find out if the program is right for you, because we can help. We absolutely can help. Kim, let's go back into having some conversation with the PACT Act.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the PACT Act, a little bit about that, what you need to get service connected for those conditions that may be in the presumptive zones. So we're going to kick off by, what is a presumptive? Like, what does it look like to have a presumptive? What zones you could possibly be in to be qualified for a presumptive condition? So a VA presumptive disability is one that the VA presumes to be service connected, even if it's not specific, meaning no nexus or a link or a connection for a service connection. Presumptive disability works like this. If you served in X location during the qualifying period and develop Y condition as a result, then X plus Y equals automatic service connection. What that looks like for automatic service connection, it could be your DD-214 that shows what location you were in, as well as it could be your service and personal records that can act as a nexus letter, with the exception of a few exposures. And Jordan will get into that later on in regards to those exceptions. So basically all that means is you served and the connection is presumed, right? So you served, say, in Southeast Asia. A lot of the conditions in Southeast Asia are upper respiratory condition, right? So if you develop such chronic rhinitis, sinusitis, then it is presumed, that is your nexus, it's presumed that you contracted that condition from the zone that you were in. So yeah, Jordan, you want to go and talk about the presumptive list, please?
Absolutely. So the presumptive condition list this is new list for Vietnam vets, now 40 plus conditions. Hypertension can be a gateway condition, which allows us to, build value for secondary claims to the hypertension. Asbestos exposed vets, which is rarely documented. It's still hard to prove. Often still will require a nexus letter. So that medical nexus to service connect the asbestos exposure is necessary, to kind of get you that service connection, which, allows you to build on secondary conditions from the hypertension. Best support. You'll want documentation from the military providing the likelihood of exposure. Um, there's a list of probable exposure locations that the VA refers to when working these claims. You can find the list in our PACT Act resource link. It's directly, it'll be shared. Hopefully it'll be shared in the chat as well, but if you check out resources, you'll be able to find it there. excuse me, sorry, dealing with a little cold here, fighting over, so I apologize. Camp Lejeune water now, total 8 conditions. Gulf War syndrome, key. However, if the symptoms developed after discharge, then these symptoms can qualify if they manifest to meet at least 10% criteria before December 31st, 2026. So that date is imperative to, getting you that service connection. Burn pits post 9/11 after September 11, 2001. It will be presumed that they were exposed to the following airborne particulates: burn pit fumes and smoke, sand and dust, general air pollution, fuel, jet fuel, exhaust, and mechanical fumes. Smoke from oil well fires. 19 conditions, primarily respiratory and cancers. And like I said, you'll find a lot of these presumptives in our resources as well. Uh, Jen?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to recap. So, especially back at the asbestos exposure. So it is considered presumptive exposure, and there are presumptive conditions. However, it's still going to be really hard to develop and to be successful. So just knowing that the keyword of presumptive still is going to lay out some challenges for you. And you're going to want to do your homework and try to come into the game with the evidence that shows a likelihood of exposure there. I mean, a lot of the conditions that we see most prevalently, obviously, the Agent Orange exposure conditions. We're looking at like diabetes and hypertension, cancers, and it really helps to be able to just have that presumability. So we just need the veteran to have the diagnosis, be able to show the diagnosis and the current severity. So again, the key when you're developing a presumptive is that, okay, presumed, we've got the proof, we've got the nexus. Now your mission is going to be to support the rating. Okay, the rating is going to come from the severity of the condition, the current, the frequency and severity of symptoms. With sinusitis, it's going to be how often are you having exacerbations and what do they look like? How are you dealing with them? So developing your evidence for presumptives is really going to be primarily focused on the symptoms and the severity, and seeing the doctor. We have a lot of veterans that are coming to us that, hey, I've been just sucking it up for 21 years, but guess what? Now it's time to go to the doctor. You're going to connect with, in best case scenario, a primary care provider, because if you're going after one condition, the likelihood is that you're going to have value that you can develop beyond that. And having a primary care provider that's helping to coordinate all of your care and documenting all of your conditions all in one place, it's going to be really helpful. So first things first, see the doctor. Get your butt to the doctor. Who always says that? Who always says that?
Or famous Brian Reese. Who else?
Yeah, can't think of the name right now. Oh, yeah, I know that guy.
Or great leader Brian Reese, and I'll segue into how to develop a presumptive, how to develop a claim for a presumptive condition, supporting your rating, right? You want to make sure that you get a formal diagnosis, and as Ms. Jen said, quoting the famous Brian Reese, you get your butt to the doctor. You have to see the doctor. You have to document the severity and the symptoms that you're experiencing, especially with your respiratory condition or any sort of condition that you're experiencing, right? So you want to get that diagnosis. So again, the formal diagnosis is very important, especially for conditions such as the PACT Act conditions, especially for upper respiratory conditions. You want to make sure that you get that diagnosis and get it documented, so how bad the symptoms are and the severity of those symptoms. Another one is standard symptoms and the exacerbations. Talk about the symptoms and how bad you're getting those flare-ups. Are you going to the doctor multiple times per year for antibiotics to get rid of the possible infections? Are you going for asthma pump multiple times per year? You want to make sure you get those documented and what it looks like for you multiple times per year on those flare-ups. Another way on how to possibly increase your rating if you're already service connected for those conditions is going through a preferred provider network to get a DBQ to increase your rating. Another way is, of course, provide your proof of service criteria. So dates and location, when were you in these zones? So providing those is a great way to create that link into the presumptive conditions. And of course, we will discuss the common conditions as we talked about earlier, the rhinitis and the sinusitis. So with sinusitis, again, you want to talk about the exacerbations, as I said before, multiple times per year is around a 30% rating, right? So again, if you're going to the doctor multiple times per year because you're having this drainage, you're having the snot, you're having to what do you call that now? Get antibiotics. You want to make sure that you're getting those documented to the doctor, but that is around a 30% rating. Incapacitating episode means that antibiotics are provided. Like each time you go, antibiotics are provided in these appointments. Non-incapacitating episodes are treated with over-the-counter meds. Still, if you're treating yourself with meds over the counter, you want to make sure that when you do go to the doctor for these antibiotics, you're saying, "Doc, hey, I had a flare last week, but I treated it with the OTC, which is the over-the-counter medication, just so that can be documented and build that medical evidence." And of course, the symptoms with sinusitis, headaches, because you have that pressure in the nasal cavity, you have the snot, the inflammation, etc. So again, seeing your doctor, building the medical evidence by stating the symptoms you're experiencing, how frequently, how many times per year on average do you have these occurrences. You want to make sure that you, again, build that medical evidence. I know with a lot of vets, it's not the norm to just go to the doctor because you just want to suck it up and move on. But to get yourself service connected, to get that rating, you have to build the medical evidence. You have to create that trail so that when the VA says, "Hey, we're not seeing where you have been to the doctor in so long," then you can pull that private medical evidence. You could possibly pull that VA medical record. It's not possibly. You could pull that VA medical record if you do go to the doctor, but not going to the doctor is not going to support your claim. Going to the doctor, you're getting that diagnosis, and you're creating that trail. It does wonders for your claims. And as we say, medical evidence does win claims, and it has been proven. So
Absolutely.
now Jordan will take over with the rhinitis.
Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate it. Nice
Yeah, no
segue
problem.
there. Smooth as silk. So with the rhinitis, a formal diagnosis is needed. You're going to want to be sure to document your symptoms with your doctor. And someone in the chat actually mentioned that messaging, secure messaging with your doctor. It does start the process of having that on record. So yes, to answer your question in the live chat, yes, that supports that. Symptoms can include chronic runny nose, chronic stuffy nose, throat clearing, watery eyes, little cough. And like Kim said, before with the sinusitis, that chronic speaks to the consistency of your conditions and how often you're having them, right? And if it's daily, monthly, quarterly, what have you. But you want to kind of make sure that you speak to how chronic those conditions present themselves. Typically rated at 0%, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And we talk about value a lot here because those lower value conditions allow you an opportunity to build upon secondary conditions that have higher value, and that's where potentially you're putting yourself in the position to see some changes, right? See those changes that we're all looking for. How rhinitis is rated? Simple: 0, 10, 30%. No obstruction is a 0%. Obstruction of 50% equals 10%. And obstruction at 50 and obstruction with polyps was like the inflammation buildup, things of that nature. That gives you that 30% rating. And that is, that breaks it down in regards to the rhinitis and how you'll see the VA rated. Inflammatory respiratory issues, for example, asthma, bronchitis, COPD, reactive airway. There are several listed in the PACT Act burn pit registry that you can identify and look over. We'll share those resources as well in the chat. You'll need a formal diagnosis, and a diagnosis with your doctor will normally include an EFT test. which measures the strength of your breath to identify the level of restriction. So it's a little device they have you blow in the tube, and you kind of go through those steps of the countdown, let you know how much air you can hold in, and how much you can push out. So that you'll have that device to kind of measure that level of activity in your lungs. The level of restriction that is identified is directly related to the rating scale. I repeat, the level of restriction that is identified is directly rated to the rating scale. Um, that's it, hard line, right? This means that the rating for the respiratory condition is purely objective, meaning that it's almost 100% based on your breath measurement EFT. And like I said, that's why I repeated that last statement, is like there's no in betweens. You're gonna, what you do or what you perform at using that device is what, clearly is gonna establish your rating criteria. Excuse me 1 second. Clearing my throat again, dealing with a cold. So Jen,
Is that a presumptive, Jordan?
yes, it is.
I'm just messing.
It's a presumptive of a toddler.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, we've gone over a lot of information, and that's kind of why we wanted to make this a little bit different version of a PACT Act, because there's still so much to cover with regard to the conditions. And there's a lot of specifics, and we threw out a few of the symptoms that can be appropriate for sinusitis, a few of the symptoms that can be appropriate for allergic rhinitis, but sharing your symptoms with your doctor is key to make sure that you're able to get that accurate diagnosis. And to hit on the secure messaging, this is a hack that I share with my veterans for almost every condition that we're developing, because at some point, the likelihood that your rater is going to be reviewing for the severity of your condition is pretty high. And the best way that you can ensure that your complaint is accurately documented is by getting your complaint just verbatim into your medical records. And how do you do that? Email, secure messaging. If you're a VA patient, you're sending your message through the VA secure messaging app and, hey, doc, I know I have an appointment coming up to see you, and we're going to talk about these sinus and allergy issues, but here's what I want you to know. Bullet point your symptoms for them. This is how often I'm dealing with them. This is the symptoms I'm dealing with. And as soon as your doctor responds, then those are now they're in your medical records. They're going to be in front of your rater. Same thing with private providers. If your primary care provider is a community provider, but their portal allows you the opportunity to send an email, get ahead of everything so that you don't have to rely, and this is the key, I think, really, is you're not relying on your provider to interpret your words, recall your words, and later transcribe your words accurately. What you want them to know and what you want them to build your treatment off of is right there in your medical records in front of you, in front of them. And they're easily referenced. Hey, we talked about this. Oh, that's right. I missed it. You can go back in my medical records because I sent you a message. So it's a life hack as well as a VA claim hack.
Yep.
Because it's really cementing things for you. And separate of just subjective conditions, I have veterans who use it for their back and their knees. Talk about the impairment. So, talk about the kind of pain, when the pain hits. Use that secure messaging as a hack. But it really is helpful because you're not relying on your doctor to interpret and document their interpretation of what it is you're saying. That it's all accurate.
Yep.
So a little bit about the 0% rating. Jordan said, sometimes we see a 0% rating for sinusitis. It's identified by X-ray, but you don't really have a lot of symptoms. You're not having multiple exacerbations throughout the year. Rhinitis, no obstruction. You just have that itchy, watery eyes. You've got that irritation. You've got the chronic sniffy nose. But there's no obstruction. So your rating is going to come back at 0%. And that's okay, because service connection in that is where the value is. And somebody, I'm thinking it was Jordan, somebody alluded to the potential for developing secondaries. And that is always a path of least resistance when you're developing your strategies and when you're developing, what's the trajectory and my potential. We're always factoring in those secondaries. And with inflammatory respiratory issues, this could be a contributing factor that could, we here, raise your hand if sleep apnea is a 4-letter word. I mean, everybody comes at us with sleep apnea. And you know what? It is a really hard claim to win. Yes, it's a high value claim, but it's a very hard claim to win because the most prevalent factor is obesity and weight gain, which is not rateable. Obesity is not a rateable condition, and weight gain is a symptom. So it's really hard to connect when the VA is going to come back and say, you didn't weigh what you weighed on active duty, and that's not our fault. Eat better, drink more water, get more exercise. But when you have more contributing factors that you're folding in, it helps to increase that likelihood of success. And when you're able to bring rhinitis or sinusitis into that nexus, it really helps. I'm not telling you there's a slam dunk because there's not. Sleep apnea is extremely resistant to success. But that avenue, that service connection, rhinitis, and sinusitis, even at 0%, can definitely help as a contributing factor in folding that into your nexus. But that being said, we've covered a lot. You have anything that you want to throw out there before we start jumping into the questions? We've got a few questions that are about our topic, and we always expect that people are going to ask. I mean, it's an opportunity to talk to the coaches, so we're ready to answer whatever you throw at us. But we have a couple in here that were specific to the PACT Act, so we'll jump on those first, and then we'll go into the no holds barred and try to help out with as many questions as we can get answered as possible. Do you have anything else you want to throw in before we go to the question?
You perfected the segue.
Perfect, Jen. Thank you so much.
In regards to just the rhinitis and sinusitis, and even if it's 0% service connected, there are different secondaries. And I saw Mr. Bradley Will was asking what secondary claims have you seen for chronic sinusitis? And again, the sleep apnea is one of them. You can have multiple contributing factors for the sleep apnea. So again, if you have sleep apnea, you're service connected for upper respiratory condition, you're service connected for the mental health, then you can have those multiple service connected disabilities to go secondary to the sleep apnea to make it a stronger case. And as Jen said, not a slam dunk. It's pretty hard to win, but having those multiple contributing factors does help the claim a lot. So hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Lee Will. All right, there was someone else that asked a question that I wanted to also cover. I think it said, what is PACT Act, right? So the PACT Act is basically where the VA is saying, hey, you were in these presumptive zones. So you were in the zones of burn pit, you were in the zone of Agent Orange, you were in the zone of toxic exposure, right? And so they grouped them together and they came up with a presumptive list for each of those zones. And of course, we have a blog that you can look it up and say, hey, I was in this zone. What conditions are presumptive? What conditions am I diagnosed with that I could possibly file for under the PACT Act, under the presumptive condition?
And I was just pulling up the resource. So I was going to just kind of define the PACT Act. The PACT Act is a new law that expands VA care and benefits, including disability compensation for veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. So it is a new law that passed that really lumps in and certifies that there are multiple contributing factors or multiple conditions that are presumed to have been caused by exposures related to time and location of service. So, and it is, I mean, it goes on for pages. It goes on for pages and pages. And that's why we kind of wanted to flip the narrative and talk a little bit more about the conditions versus the actual PACT Act and the law itself, because it's something we've covered previously, but we could just go on for the whole hour explaining the PACT Act. So we do have that resource in our website, vaclaimsinsider.com. And you can just do a keyword search of PACT Act and you'll get, I think, 5 or 6 great resources that can really help to deep dive into that. Because we just wanted to cover the PACT Act a little bit, really spend a little bit more time on the conditions. And I saw one more that popped up, and I see that a veteran had asked, sinusitis and rhinitis, are they separate conditions? And they are.
Yes.
They're separately diagnosed, separately rated, separately, they are completely separate. That's two that both have compensable value to them. Yep, there it goes on the screen.
Right, because they do impact different parts of the what do you call that, ear, nose, and throat region. So definitely two different conditions, two separate radiants. So yeah, we're not pyramided at all.
Great question. So yeah, let's jump into some of that. We've got our backstage team who is absolutely incredible. They support us and help us to make sure we can see the comments as they're coming in and star them, throwing up the links for us. So we want to thank them backstage. I think we have Kat and Genesee. Did we have Geraldine? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I think Kat's still covering down. So Jen, do you want to go over the questions that are starred? Because we had a few that are starred in there.
Right.
Yep, I have one more I wanted to jump in, and then you guys can grab two. So
Okay.
William Dudley asked, what about people stateside where Agent Orange, Blue, and White was used? Okay, so there's very specific criteria to the Agent Orange exposure. There are always going to be one-offs, okay? So you can still try to develop, as long as you can prove that you had an exposure and that there is a scientific link to the condition, the diagnosis that you're claiming, and that exposure, then you'll get consideration from the VA. I'm not going to say you're going to win. You're up against a lot, and that the evidentiary record is going to be something that you need to put together a very solid claim. And the onus, the nexus, proving that connection is more than likely going to be on you. So developing as much evidence as you can have to prove your exposure outside of the PACT Act and the PACT Act criteria, then you're going to be in that one-off section where you're going to be developing your claim and bringing the evidence to the table to prove it. And we see that in a lot of different areas, that there are some people that are just kind of outside of that. And the VA is going to work with you. You're just really going to need to make sure that you are involving medical professionals to prove that exposure, to prove that link to the exposure. All right, guys, let's go.
All right, so let's start questions here. We got a few. What secondary claims have you seen to chronic sinusitis from burn pits?
Right, I think I addressed that one. So the chronic sinusitis, again, you can do the sleep apnea secondary to the chronic sinusitis, because the upper respiratory condition does impact sleep. A lot of my vets that I work with, when they sleep on their back, their spouses are telling them, hey, you're having this breathing issue when you sleep. So the upper respiratory conditions, such as a chronic sinusitis or rhinitis, are contributing factors to sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is one of those main ones. And then hopefully Kat can throw a link in the chat with that secondary to sinusitis from our blog. There was a question that I wanted to bring up. What is, I think Keith Green, can you explain what a nexus is? So a nexus is basically a link, right? So a link to the condition or whatever it is that you're trying to link, it's a link. And what the nexus is for a presumptive, just for instance, for a presumptive condition is going to be your DD-214, because it's going to show your time or your period in which you served in whatever presumptive zone. So that would be your nexus for a presumptive, or it could be your service or personal record, which the VA does have a hold of that, which is your C file. Now, say for instance, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here. Say for instance, you had a incident in service and you filed for it, but the VA denied it, but they do have favorable findings within the decision letter, then that's where we could possibly refer you to our preferred provider network of doctors. If you're diagnosed with a condition, if you've been seen for the condition, then they could do a chart review and provide you a nexus letter if they see fit. So a nexus letter could be that, as well as your personal records or your DD-214 can act as a nexus to presume that happened to your service or you're exposed to that during your service time.
Let me just jump in and clarify nexus.
Yeah, sure.
In general. Nexus in general. So there are 3 requirements to establishing service connection, and we refer to that as the collision. So the 3 things you need are an in-service event, or an already service-connected condition. You need a diagnosed condition. You need a current complaint that is formally diagnosed. And then the nexus is the bridge. It's the link or the connection between those two. Okay, so a nexus can be the bridge between, that was me. I just answered call. I thought I had can be the bridge between a primary already service connected condition and the secondary that you're developing. So mental health and tinnitus, a nexus letter could support migraines as a secondary. So the nexus is that link. It's medical evidence that proves the connection between in-service event or already service-connected condition and a current complaint that's formally diagnosed. So I just wanted to go off of the presumptive into nexus in general, exactly what that is. And we do have a preferred provider network that is always working to help our veterans with developing the documentation to support that in the form of nexus letters or IMOs. So we do have that resource available to our veterans.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Jan.
Thanks, Jen. Let's see here. Another question. Within the start questions, we have anything new on presumptives from Agent Orange in Vietnam? I don't understand that question. Anything new?
So that
Morrow Kelly.
Newest would have been
The
hypertension.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just hypertension, right?
Yep. So everything else is pretty much still the same. The only one that they, with the PACT Act that they lumped in was hypertension. So high blood pressure, formally diagnosed, whether it's med managed or not well controlled. There's a rating scale for that as well. We do recommend in certain situations that even at a zero, again, because of potential secondaries, even at a 0%, it can be valuable to develop and service connect that hypertension. So, talk as a presumptive, absolutely. I mean, you want to go for anything that could potentially help build your value. But the newest would be hypertension related to Agent Orange. Let's look at a couple questions that are not related to the PACT Act that are starred. Wow, we've got a lot.
It says, I got one. Brian Hess I was recently diagnosed with hearing loss and issued a hearing aid. Should I file a direct service connection for hearing loss or secondary to tinnitus? I am service connected with tinnitus.
So for that, Brian, I would, I don't know if Jordan's going to say it, but I would suggest that you sign up for a discovery call so that you can get with one of our representatives to see how best we can suit your needs in terms of getting you connected with a coach, and then you guys can build a strategy. But again, we have to see what it is that you're diagnosed with, how is that going for you, and then again, build a strategy. So signing up for a discovery call is very important in this situation, because we're not able to give you a strategy over Facebook Live, because again, we're not sure what is it exactly is going on.
But we do see that hearing loss is often more difficult to service connect than tinnitus.
Yep.
They wouldn't be really secondary. They'd be more like sister conditions based on the same exposure. But we do see that the more prevalently, the more commonly connected condition between the two is tinnitus. And there's very specific criteria for service connection and rating related to hearing loss. It's not just general hearing loss that's been identified. So definitely get a discovery call or chat with a coach to see if that would be a good pathway for you. Do still have some more good PACT Act questions in here. I see one from Robert Bickle, and he's got two that are just, Robert Bickle. So if I filed for asthma under the PACT Act with a diagnosis, with a VA record of treatment, with daily inhalers, and no pre-service history of asthma, yet the decision was not service related, what gives? My coach and I are at a loss. Now, so if you have evidence that supports a decision that you didn't get, typically your next best step is going to be to have that decision re-reviewed. You can request that your claim be pulled out of the claim lane, all of the evidence and your entire claim be sent up to a higher level to be re-reviewed as a higher level review. This also gives you the opportunity to potentially get on the phone with the reviewer and draw their attention directly to the evidence that you submitted, to the CMP exam. So you can really discuss and just draw their attention right to the evidence that you believe supports that accurate decision if that was the wrong decision in your opinion. And there was a follow-up and I sorry. How do you get looked at for rhinitis? My experience is that I can't get a doctor to give me an MRI even though they agree I have rhinitis. I mean, you need to keep advocating for yourself. If your doctor's not playing the way you want to play, you have to advocate to make sure that you're getting the treatment and the attention from your doctor that you need. We know our health the best. We know our bodies the best. And if you believe that there is an obstruction and it's not just, a swelling related to a runny nose. If you believe you have more, then advocate for yourself, ask for a referral to an ENT. If you're a VA patient and you feel like your doctor isn't playing ball with you, you can always go to the patient care advocate and loop them in on the situation and see how they can help. But you always have to be your own advocate with healthcare, always, no matter who your doctor is and what direction you're coming from, you always have to be your own advocate.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we always say here. You definitely have to be your biggest advocate, especially in medical appointments, so that you're heard, right? Because you want to get those symptoms documented to the best of your ability. All right.
Looks like we got a question that popped up twice. Ron Bridges, it says, as stated earlier, I've recently been diagnosed with kidney cancer, and according to my service deployments, the diagnosis, then I should be presumptively service connected under the PACT Act. My question is, I had a biopsy Monday. Should I wait on those results before I submit my claim? Also, I have at least one, maybe two Nexus letters. Should I wait to submit until I can upload those claims? So, Ron, that more or less lies under the direction of strategy. Are you if you're an elite member, that's something that you want to kind of go over with your coach, because that's specific to your condition, to your claim. And this is, in this platform, we're not necessarily strategizing for each individual.
Right.
And keep in mind that if this does fall under the presumptives related to Agent Orange, if this is a presumptive condition, if it's falling under, you need the diagnosis for service connection. What you want to also be bringing into your claim is support for an accurate rating. So you want to have documentation that supports the symptoms, the severity of your symptoms as well. So that's what you want to think about. Before you file your claim, you want to make sure that it's developed to support not only service connection, but an accurate rating.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thank you, Jen, with two N's. There was a question that I saw earlier. All right, so from Grace Smith, and she states, so if you're denied disabilities back in 2000, early 2000 from the VA, now what form do we file, or can we refile for those denied, claims? Now, again, that's also strategy, but you're out of the window for a high-level review. They give you a 1-year window. Claim the form that you would file would be a supplemental, and you have to have new and relevant evidence. Also, with it being early 2000, you want to make sure that there's continuity of care, right? So if you've just been to the doctor once since 2000 and it's 2023, the VA may deny that because they're going to say, hey, it doesn't look like you have much of an issue with this condition. You've only seen the doctor once in 23 years. So you want to make sure that you have that continuity of care, you have that medical evidence. But again, it would be a supplemental claim with new and relevant evidence supporting the claims that were denied back then.
And something to consider that we see a lot with older denials is a lot of conditions that maybe should have initially been filed as a secondary were filed as a primary. Consider the path of service connection before you redevelop that claim. If you're going straight back in, with headaches, But are you already service connected with something now that could be contributing rather than trying to span decades back to the headaches you had on active duty? Closing that gap is going to be really strategic. So maybe jump onto a discovery call, see if maybe a coach can help you with this and help you really put it together so that you're just screaming green lights all the way towards success.
Right. Path of least resistance, right?
Yes.
Getting those secondary claims to already primary claims is very important. As Ms. Jen was saying, having those headaches in service, sure, fine. But if you are service connected with mental health, if you're service connected with tinnitus, that's something that the headaches can go secondary to because those are contributing factors. So something to take note of.
I call it like, you know, deviating from traffic. I give an example. It's like, instead of taking the highway, we may take the back roads. Yeah, it'll be some lights, but if you look at Waze, it only added about 2 minutes to, you know, the time that you're gonna get there.
Right.
And that's kind of you know, that's one thing I use when I'm going through strategize with my vets to say, hey, we have that lower value, that service connection. We're gonna come in, we're gonna take the long, you know, we're gonna take the back roads. We'll get there.
Yeah.
May take a few minutes. You look at Waze, you only lost 3 minutes, and we end up getting there when everybody else is at the party. So that's
Nice.
something that I try to use an example of that as well. Go
That's
ahead,
a good
Kim.
analogy.
Yeah.
Let's jump
Right.
on James Glass. That's one that comes up in almost every class, and I like to make
Right.
sure that if I am 100%, but I have other issues, should I try to claim, or would that jeopardize the P&T? Kimberly, I know you're ready to jump on that.
Oh, you know this.
She's itching. She's
I'm
itching.
like, sir, with all due respect, do not file any more claims. Absolutely not. You're 100% P&T. There's nothing more to be gained. Yes, some people like to go after special monthly compensation. It's not worth poking the bear. And you know what I mean by the bear. It's not worth poking the VA. You
It
open
is
up
not.
that kind of worms,
No.
it could be possible decrease, right? It could be possible decreases for the claims that have brought that 100%.
Your 100% and your P&T. You have won. Put your cards up. Go find a different fight. You're done.
Yeah.
To be
Don't do anything more.
getting
Nothing
your
more.
friends, getting your coworkers and your family members to go get theirs, but you've done. You're out of the game.
Yeah. Don't do
Absolutely.
anything more. Just enjoy that 100% P&T, kick back, put your feet up, and drink a hot cup of tea.
Yep.
A cup of hot tea. I'm even tripping over my words. But no, don't do anything more. You're at 100% P&T. Nothing more to be done, honestly.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see. We've got a couple. Sorry, we've got a few minutes left, and I just want to make sure that we're optimizing. I mean, and anybody whose question is not answered right by us in the live, just know that our team is going to be going through the questions and making sure that you do get an answer. So if we don't get to you right now, and we've got a lot of starred ones, besides the ones that are just in the general that we're not going to be able to get to. So just know that you will get an answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh.
There was one.
It's another.
Gordon, please explain about whether the PACT Act applies to circumstances beyond the specific dates and locations called out by the PACT Act. No, the PACT Act is very specific. So anything beyond the dates and locations of service, you're going to have to develop these claims where you're addressing your nexus and your diagnosis and severity of symptoms. So the PACT Act kind of almost absolves you of having to prove the nexus. In some cases, you may have to bring in support of your time and location of service, but the nexus is really taken care of within the PACT Act. Outside of the PACT Act, if it's especially with Gulf War, if your dates, if your the 10-year rule, if those things are kind of out of whack, you're going to want to fold in addressing the nexus to help get that service connected. So the PACT Act is very specific. The criteria is very specific. The conditions, the dates and locations are very specific. So there isn't anything that really wanders out. They spent years putting it together, and it's just a very tight circle of conditions, dates, locations. And I hope I answered that. really good way.
Yeah. I think we already attempted this, or we did this question. Or did you already answer this? Can I get a separate rating for rhinitis and sinusitis? Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
I think we answered that one. Or maybe it was another person.
I'm not sure. From Paradis, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. My apologies if I'm not. Paradis Boys, do the burn pits, trash sandstorms cause a dry cough and can be filed can be used to file under the PACT Act. So again, if you are experiencing upper respiratory condition, you want to make sure that you get to the doctor and get the diagnosis,
Yeah. That
right?
formal
The
diagnosis.
formal diagnosis is going to be very important. Again, if you were exposed to these, if you were in this presumptive zone during the presumptive period. So getting the diagnosis for sure is going to be important to file a claim under the PACT Act. But yeah, there are different reasons for, again, the burn pits, there's the trash and all of what came along with it. But again, the diagnosis is very important. And of course, the symptoms that you're experiencing is going to be important for that to be documented.
And as far as the burn pits, it's burn pits. So you've kind of listed it, the burn pits, trash, toxic things that were burned, plastics and chemicals, the jet fuel that was used to light it. But yes, and then the particulate matter, the unfiltered air, the sand in the air, all of these are irritants that have caused damage to potentially your sinuses, your rhinal cavities, and your upper respiratory. So, and your respiratory issues. So that's why when you go to the doctor, let them know these are the issues that I'm dealing with. And I served in the Middle East and I was exposed to burn pits so that they can help you with developing that. And chronic cough, and if you look at the list, going back to the PACT Act presumptive conditions list under the burn pits or under the Gulf War, you'll see that, the conditions that are listed, chronic cough is definitely something that could be considered, whether it's a productive or a dry cough. People who chronically clear their throat or, are chronically itching their ears or rubbing their eyes. Those are symptoms of allergic rhinitis, but also could be respiratory issues, bronchiectasis, all kinds of different big scientific smart words that are listed as diagnoses that can be considered and filed under the PACT Act. So first place to start is going to be with your doctor, getting a formal diagnosis and your symptoms diagnosed.
Right.
We have 2 minutes left.
And a question here from Mr. Allen. Can a previously denied claim for prostate cancer submitted in 2008 due to Agent Orange be retroactively granted to the original claim date regardless of the previous denials for the claims? So from my knowledge, no. Jen, is there anything you want to add to that? Usually when you are talking about possible back pay, the VA looks at intent to file as well as they look at your diagnosis date. Is there anything you want to add to that, Ms. Jen?
Yeah, I would say it's not likely because the appeal laws have changed and there are new appeal options. So we're not going to see claims that are going back to that original file date or related to that original denial. We're looking at you would be filing new and relevant evidence, and it would be a new claim date. So whether it goes back or whether it's service connected, no, we're not seeing anything that's going back beyond the year-ish window. But it's okay. Still chase it. Still go after it and see if you can be service connected because you don't want to miss out on anything going forward. So regardless of the previous denials, get back in the game. Don't expect that it's going to back pay unless you have a current intent to file beyond that intent to file date. But still get back in the game and go chase it because you want to be successfully service connected and covered for anything that you deserve. If you deserve it, go get it.
Right. And also with that condition, it's a whole host of other secondaries. So yeah, definitely go ahead and chase your claims for sure. Do not give up.
As a quick recap on our way out, we've got our hour. Thank you everybody who joined us. Real quick, we want to remind you about our strategy, our education, our SEM method. We want you to reach out for a discovery call, join the program, start getting educated, go get what you deserve. And just a last shout out, Brian Reese's book, You Deserve It. The second edition is now available. You can order yours on Amazon. You can also download a free copy by going to youdeserveitfree.com. Again, thank you guys for all of the insight and all of the great information. It's been great to panel like this with you today, and to all of our veterans who are in the room. Thank you for joining us, hanging with us for an hour, asking all the great questions. We will get the rest of the questions answered. Tune in next week and keep asking, keep showing up. We appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us. Take care. Have a great Wednesday. Bye.